back to the Shreya Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Hendrickson, and today I am so excited to introduce to you Miss Bridgette Shaw-Bain. She is an experienced registered yoga teacher with over 1,000 hours in training, and she specializes in helping people age gracefully and balance their hormones, which I cannot wait to learn more about. So, Bridgette, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor and a pleasure. Can you just give us a little bit of background on how you got into yoga and how you found your way into this specialized yoga that you teach and practice?
Yes, thank you, Ashley, for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you too. I started my yoga journey back when I was at university because it was required for us to take yoga. And that was when I was 21. I am now 46 in a few months. There we go. First one. I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
Okay.
Start over from the beginning of your answer.
That would be amazing. I apologize. I've never actually done that before. Okay. I am here. I am present. I am ready for you.
We're good. So can you just tell us a little bit about how you got started in the yoga space and how you found your way to this specialized practice that you teach these days?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really happy to be chatting with you about this today. I started practicing yoga back when I was 21 years old. It was a requirement for theater studies that I was in. And I kind of fell in love with that. My major was supposed to be theater. I did end up majoring in that, but the yoga was what really kind of grabbed me. And I started off a little bit in a stronger practice, Iyengar yoga, and I was really focused on the physical aspects of things. And then over the years, as things started changing in my life, my practice started changing as well. And I went from super active practices to some more gentle practices, and meditation and Yoga Nidra became a huge part of what I do. And then fast forward to about maybe 5 years ago, I started having really severe symptoms of what I was assuming was PMS. And I knew that yoga could help me with that. And I always had bad PMS, but something shifted. And I heard about something called Hormone Yoga Therapy. And I was like, well, I've been doing yoga already for over 20 years, and it's not cutting it right now because things are so intense. I went to my doctor. I was trying to figure stuff out. And someone came through town teaching something called Hormone Yoga Therapy. And I was like, I'll give it a try. I'm not sure what's going to happen with this, but before I try medication, before I try any major lifestyle changes, I'm going to see if I can incorporate this. So I spent a weekend at the studio learning this practice, which is a set sequence. It takes like a half hour to do. And I decided that I was going to commit to 6 months of daily practice and see what would happen. Within 24 hours, I started noticing a little bit of a change.
Wow.
Yeah. And I went back. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was just going to say, what were some of the changes that you noticed that quickly? Because I think this speaks volumes to probably most of the people listening, and to me personally, as I think I'm headed right towards menopause as we speak. So what did you notice? What are some of those changes?
Yeah, so the first thing that I noticed was it's a 2-day workshop that I took. And after the first night, I went home and I was like, I feel like someone just sort of went ping, ping, and woke my ovaries up. I don't have any other way to explain it. It almost felt like a little pinching or something going on. I had a fantastic night's sleep. I woke up the next day, I went and did the rest of it. And that's when I was like, okay, obviously something's going on. And I did the practice that day. And then I was supposed to get my period a week later. So I was PMSing when I was in the training. And that whole entire week, my symptoms were not as bad as they typically were. They were still there, but I felt so much better. And then the next month when I got my period, I got it and I didn't even know it was coming because I didn't have the
That's
symptoms I was
amazing.
having.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, and everyone experiences a little bit differently what the effects are for them. Some people it's more immediate. Some people it takes a little bit longer.
Sure.
I personally believe that for me, it happened so quickly because I've been practicing daily pretty much for over 25 years.
Right.
So I've carved out the energy channels, and I've got things in my body that were already there. And pulling the practice together for me was the missing link. So I didn't even know what perimenopause was before I took the workshop. I thought I was actually going into menopause, and I didn't realize that menopause was actually only one day. And so there was a lot of missing information that I think most of us experience, this like sort of, where am I? What's going on? What's happening to me? I thought it was PMS, but symptoms were horrible. I looked up perimenopause and was like, I have 30 symptoms of perimenopause. My doctor tried to put me on antidepressants and tell me that I needed other help. And I was like, I don't think that this is depression, even though I had developed anxiety, which I'd never had in my whole life before. And that's a very common symptom of perimenopause. And I didn't know that. So as I started to do more research and fire my doctor and do more of this practice, more and more started to change. So I had nausea for like 2 weeks out of every month. I would be vomiting from hormonal fluctuations. I had brain fog. I had weight gain, like severe, like ups and downs each month. I had horrible, like breast tenderness and like swelling. I mean, the list just can go on and on, which if you are in perimenopause or postmenopausal, you know what those symptoms are. Hot flashes. And
It's so fun being a woman sometimes, isn't it?
It can be. It can be.
It can be.
Yeah. Like since becoming part of this world, like I never thought that in my 40s I'd have to be thinking about aging, because I don't view being 46 as being old or being middle-aged or anything like that.
Right.
I feel young. I feel healthy. I feel like I have so much of my life ahead of me. But my symptoms were getting in the way of that. And so as I joined different groups to hear about other women's experiences, all I kept hearing and all I continue to hear is how horrible this part of our life is and how miserable they are. And when is it going to end? And it's like women are just sort of like trudging through this, assuming that there's really nothing that you can do about it, and just having to kind of get through it and get to the other side. But I found that that's not the case. That's not.
Yeah,
the case.
I'm with you 100%. And I say this all the time. I think, unfortunately, there's so many conditions, perimenopause being one of them, that we're conditioned and or told to accept as a normal part of aging. And it's not normal just because it's common, right? And it's common because so many of us are living similar lives. We're not balanced, we're overstressed, overworked, right? Juggling too many things, not taking care of ourselves. And so although many of us experience these awful symptoms leading up to menopause, that doesn't make it a normal part of aging, and it doesn't mean it's something that we have to experience. So I love your message and I love what you're doing. It fits perfectly in with my philosophy and what we do here. But I'd like to hear more about how it works and what kind of, what makes it different, your practice, from like going to, let's say, hot yoga or a hatha class or something like that.
Sure. More traditional yoga or the yoga that you might see like in a gym or in a studio does help. I don't want to discount that. It can help when you're out of balance a bit with your hormones. But when things are really extreme, sometimes we have to like adapt a little bit more and change some other things. So I'll talk in just a moment about the actual practice itself, but it is a way of looking at our health holistically. So we can't just do the practice and think that that is the only thing that's going to change everything. It will be a major piece of it, but our stress levels need to be managed. The way we eat, we need to consider that, because we need different things at this time of our life than we did in other times. And the same things won't work, right? So we have to change the way we exercise. We have to change little things in our day-to-day life, which is difficult. Creating new habits is never really an easy thing. So all of that plays a part as well. But with the practice, we take traditional postures that you would see and we change them. So Dinah Rodrigues is a Brazilian psychologist and yogini who is, this year, I believe it's in May, she turns 96. And she created this system, and she is the only one training people in it. So even at this age, she's traveling around the world. She's training teachers to go out there and share this practice. She started this over 35 years ago. And in other countries, this practice is being recommended by gynecologists to help with a number of different issues: PCOS, infertility, PMS, PMDD. So all, hypothyroidism, all kinds of things, in addition to perimenopause and menopause. So we take those traditional movements and we make them more dynamic with Bhastrika breath, which is a really strong, powerful breath that is taught just a little bit differently in hormone yoga than it would be, say, in a yoga studio. And we use one other breathing technique that you would typically see in a class, like an Ashtanga class or something like that, that ocean breath that you sometimes hear, Darth Vader breath that you hear in class. We changed that one as well. And we really focus on doing things that impact the ovaries, the thyroid, and the pituitary gland. And so through dynamic movement and breath, there's this compression and release that starts to happen. So it starts to massage the glands, and then it activates them. And as you know, like, it's a whole system of communication that runs through us. And so we're not saying, ooh, I need more of this hormone, I need less of that hormone. We are activating the gland, and then the body's intelligence takes over and it starts to regulate. So that little thing was like literally waking up my ovaries.
Wake up, girls, time to go, right?
Which actually, it brings up a good point too, because sometimes people have had their thyroids removed or they've had their ovaries removed, and you can still do this practice and receive benefit from it even with that.
I mean, between perimenopause and thyroid support alone, I say like only 100% of women need to be informed about what you're doing, because it really is. I mean, so much of what I see in my coaching practice, I can't count the number of women that I've come into contact with over the last 6 months that have some sort of thyroid condition. And what I'm starting to see a lot of, which is really interesting, and I would assume you see this too, and the practice would be supportive of it, is women developing Graves later in life and actually having the opposite symptoms. So they're having like weight gain and all of these types of hypothyroid symptoms with something that is typically considered to be hyperthyroid. So just starting to understand like what these shifts are happening in the body at this time in our lives that are impacting all of the hormones. I would also expect that this practice would help with adrenal health and cortisol management.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We do have a couple exercises that focus on that as well. It's a smaller part of the practice, but the stress reduction also is a huge part of the practice.
It is. Absolutely. And you nailed the other things that we talk so much about, which is how it is really a holistic practice if you're trying to cultivate wellness. And healthy aging, I think, is becoming such a big focus because, to your point, I think most of us in our 40s don't feel like what we thought maybe 40 was like when we were kids, right? That's like, it's the new 20, right? I think we could go forever. And so being able to have a practice that is age appropriate, that is not more stress on the body, adding more fuel to the fire,
Mhm.
and generating a healing opportunity is so impactful and so important.
Yes.
So do you have, I know you've had some personal success with it, but do you have any really cool stories to share about either yourself or clients that you've worked with?
Yeah, absolutely. There are, so I have one woman, Catherine, I have her testimonial up on my site because it's just like, oh, amazing. She did my on-demand workshop that I have. And so when you do that, you get like a half hour with me one-on-one. So she did this through the videos on her own, at her own pace, like took her time with it, but she was like gung-ho, I'm going to do this. And she lost like over 44 pounds. She is a school teacher and was under tremendous stress, especially over the last couple of years with the pandemic.
Yeah.
And she had her own 2 kids at home that she had to take care of. And so there was just a tremendous amount of stress on her, which was impacting her hormones so much. I mean, like mood, patience, brain fog, all of that stuff is very, very real. And she was just struggling, like really struggling. And she was one of those people who took to it right away and was just the same as me. I'm going to do this every day. I'm just going to make this happen. This is going to become a part of my routine. And the vibrancy in her like skin, in her eyes, in her energy, like everything came to life. She was back on track and organized and focused and feeling good and sleeping better, and all these amazing things started happening for her. And so she does a daily practice now, which is incredible. And what I hear from a lot of women is that if they skip their practice, they notice a big difference. Um, it makes such a huge difference in your energy level and how you sleep, so many different things. I have someone else who had severe PMDD and was just all over emotionally, and like kind of bloodbath periods and things like that, and was 2 little kids and struggling herself. And she got into the practice and her symptoms went away, and she was managing a new business and a move and her kids and all of the things with so much more ease and an ability, again, to focus and concentrate and like get things done and be more efficient with her life. Um, I mean, mood is such a big part of what is affected when we're going through this time. Like, we lose patience with people, we have rage, we have anxiety, we have all kinds of things that seem to take over that we feel like we don't have control over. And so I remember, like, for me, I would just be like, I'm going to go hide out for the next week because I don't want to regret what's going to come out of my mouth.
Unfortunately, I've been there and I haven't quite found the way to hide out yet.
And some of us can't. And so if you can't, like, you've got to figure out, like, what can I do for this, right? I've had women in their 60s and 70s find their libido again and like rekindle their relationships. It helps with like moisture and drive and all kinds of things. I
It's
mean,
amazing.
Dina's husband is over 100 years old, and they have a wonderful life together. So,
That's amazing.
yeah, she still practices this regularly. So yeah.
So here's a question then. Can men do this
Yes.
practice, or is it okay?
There's one specifically designed for them, because part of what happens in the practice too is we use a Tibetan circulation of energy. And so after each exercise, we circulate our energy to the different glands. So the men would go to the testes, we would go to the ovaries, obviously. So it's, different in that way. And then we do some different visualizations and meditations in the practice as well. It's pretty simple once you learn it. There are a lot of details to learning it, but once you know it, it's a 7 exercise warm up that takes less than 5 minutes. And then there are 21 exercises in total. And of that, 2 of them are Yoga Nidras, and 1 is a meditation. So it's pretty easy once you've got it down. It's just that process of learning it takes a little bit of time. So when I learned it, it was like, here's your manual, here's our weekend, and then that was it. And I'm kind of nerdy when it comes to stuff like that. So I sat down, I was like coloring and drawing and writing out notes and doing all these things. I memorized everything, but a lot of people struggle with that, especially if you're having brain fog and memory issues and like you can't keep things straight. So I created like an on-demand guide so that I can like bring you through the practice at different paces. So if you're going a little slower, you need more cues, or if you're ready to just like move through it really quickly and you just need a quick reminder, this one's to the thyroid, this one, and with support, I find that more women are going to be more consistent, and you need to practice it at least like 4 to 5 times a week to get the results. And once you know it, it's like 25 to 30 minutes. So it's not a huge amount of time that you have to commit to it. And as I said, the results for everyone come differently, but everyone starts to feel things, even if it's a little bit more energy. They sleep through the night, the hot flashes subside or are completely eliminated. Libido is increased, weight is impacted by this, that glow, that energy that we have, so many things. And all of those physical issues that you see as signs of imbalance through these different practices begin to change, all of them.
It's amazing. I'm like super interested in learning more about this, one personally, but so many of my clients are in that space right now, right? And always looking for ways to support hormone balance without the use of, if we can avoid it, any type of replacement therapies. There's so much conflicting thought on that in the medical and functional medicine and integrative community, whether we need them or not. And the school of thought that I think I'm most aligned with at the current moment is that if we're cycling, we shouldn't be replacing our hormones because that balance is so intricate. But having tools that can help you naturally rebalance your body and allow, I always joke that what we just need to get out of the way, right?
Yeah.
The body is so intelligent and it has the capability of healing and finding homeostasis on its own if we can just get out of the way and let it do its job. Whether that mean like stop running miles and miles and miles because you're putting more stress on your body and do a maybe not so strenuous yoga practice to give your body some time to just chill and rebalance and do its magic. Right. So it's important to start, I think, to educate and empower, but to start to re-educate, especially women, around what it looks like to take care of our bodies. What does healthy movement look like? What does that mean? Do I have to go sweat to death for 90 minutes in a hot yoga class to get the benefits of yoga? Right. And sometimes, yes, maybe you do. But a lot of times for so many of us, it's overtraining that's doing a lot of damage, and we need to take a step back and just care for ourselves, really, right?
Yes.
And share that like love that we have for everyone else, that nurturing that we bring it in and protect it. So I'm super, super grateful to have heard everything you have to say today. Is there anything else people need to know? I know your practice is very unique. So why don't you let us know, like, how many of you are there out there? Not too many.
So there are a lot out in other countries, especially like throughout Europe and in South America. But in the States, I've found 1 or 2. And in Canada, I know that there are 3 of us. And that's it. So it's not something easy to find. It's not something that you can say to another teacher, oh, hey, have you heard of this? And they're going to go, oh, yeah, this is, So it's hard getting the word out. So I really appreciate the opportunity to do this, because I felt so angry when I first found out about it and how well it worked, because I was like, why have I been suffering all this time? Like,
Right.
this is ridiculous.
Why doesn't everybody know about this?
Like, this is the whole world needs to know about this. And so one of the things about this practice that Dinah says is start doing it before you are moving into perimenopause, because it'll pave that path, and you can go through perimenopause without symptoms. Then your period is still going to fluctuate, because that's what happens. We gradually lose our period. It's not like you're going to have it on track, but mine was all over the place for a long time.
Right.
And with the practice, it's consistent. Now I'm moving deeper into peri, so I've been in it for probably 8 years now. And as I go deeper into it, there are starting to be some fluctuations in my timing, but that's normal and that's to be expected. And I think also it's really important to note that like this is one piece, as we were talking about. And with movement, we also, like, this is part of what's opened up for me since going into the hormone world, is recognizing that even those other classes that I was taking, they felt good. They had a ton of benefits, but they were not necessarily appropriate for where I was at the stage of my life.
Right.
And so I've shifted. Like, my whole aging with grace thing now is like, I teach mobility yoga. So it's keeping our bodies strong and mobile so that we can do functional things in our life. So we can reach the top shelf when we need to get something, so we can squat down and get under that table. And things that I see so many people who are aging just say, oh, I'm too old to do that. Well, no, we can always do
choice.
that.
That is a choice.
Keep our bodies moving in the right way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I say all the time too, my fitness goals have changed from like, how much can I lift and how fast can I run and how long can I go, to I want to be able to hike when I'm 95. What do I need to do to keep my body in good physical condition so it's capable of letting me do the things I enjoy doing? And I'm a physical person. I want to be outside. I want to swim and paddleboard and hike and do yoga, you know, and go for a walk and all of those things until like literally the last day, if I can do it. So, you know, killing myself in the gym for however many hours a week I used to is not the answer, right? And we can still maintain really good body composition and feel good about ourselves and have the mobility and all of the things that we're looking for by starting to really tap in, right? And I'm sure your practice teaches a lot about like coming home, tapping in, what is your intuition telling you, right? And cultivating a practice that does support healthy aging and aging gracefully and feeling good and having fun while you're doing it, right? That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I've lost a lot of the interest in like, how can I do the fancy pose? How can I, you know, do the strong chaturangas and like all of these things? Sometimes it's still fun to play with that stuff, but you know, I'm a mother, I run my own business, I have other things going on. And so if I have to choose what I'm going to do when I spend my time working on my body, I'm going to do things that are going to keep me stronger and healthier and here for a lot longer. And everything that I try to do, I like to do everything as naturally as possible first before I have to turn to support somewhere else, which I believe that is a beautiful thing when Eastern and Western can come together.
Yes.
But I also really love the natural. Like, I just recently started doing face yoga over the past year or so, and like producing collagen and you know, helping with fine lines and wrinkles and things like that. But not because I was like, I need a facelift or I want to, you know, change my face in any way, but just as when we practice yoga or other things physically, we get that glow and our bodies feel good. Same thing happens up here, right? And so it's like, I never would have thought I'd be doing all this crazy face stuff 10 years ago, you know?
Right.
But it all comes together.
It's beautiful.
Mhm.
So most important, how do people find you if they want to work with you, if they recognize that they need this in their lives for their own sanity, if nothing else?
Yes.
How do we work with you if we're not in Canada?
Yeah, well, the pandemic changed a lot of that for me, which is amazing. I was working with women in Bahrain, in Japan, in Israel, and Australia, like all over the place, because now I have on-demand workshop that you can take at any time. You get access to it for 6 months. You get a private with me. You get support after. And I also do it live and in person. I've traveled places to teach it. I will be coming hopefully to Illinois, potentially Minnesota, potentially New York. I've got little like people interested in these places to bring me in to teach. But when I teach it here in Calgary, oftentimes we'll do it on Zoom. So you can join in on Zoom when I'm teaching it. And so my website is bridgetteshaw.com. And I have like a whole hormone yoga section there. So you can go in and see like where things are happening. I do have a free warm-up class that you can learn. So those 7 exercises that take 5 minutes, they lubricate your joints, they bring in energy, they get your digestive system working. So just those 5 minutes alone can be like a replacement of your coffee midway through the day, a start to your day. And a lot of women start with that to get a taste of it, and then they'll sign up for the workshop. And once you've taken the workshop, I will occasionally have like a Zoom where we'll get together and we'll practice, and then we'll have tea afterwards and just check in and see how everyone's doing. I have a weekly class that I offer now on Zoom that I actually had a bunch of people from the States in last night for Aging with Grace. We don't do the hormone yoga, but we focus entirely on mobility for the first 40 minutes. And then we do about 15 minutes of face yoga. And then we move into like restorative relaxation practices to help with stress. So all of that will also help with the aging process, with your hormones, with cultivating balance. And that is up on my website as well.
Amazing.
I'm on Instagram. I am on Facebook, though I focus a bit more on my Instagram page. So that's Bridgette Shaw Yoga. And I'm always open to chatting about hormones. So anyone can reach out to me, send me an email. We can set up a little talk.
That's great.
Yeah.
So bridgetteshaw.com is how you find her. And if you can't remember that, you can always email us at info@shreya.wellness.com. I am super, super grateful for you taking the time and really excited to explore this a little bit more. Please let us know when you're in Illinois. And I may have a couple of places that would be really interested in bringing you into, so we can talk about that later. But thanks again so much for your time. It was a pleasure to have you here. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.